Born Primitive Outdoor is proud to partner with Montana Knife Company, Marsupial Gear, Evolution Outdoors, Sheep Feet, and Capture Gear. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to our sponsors. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Outdoor podcast. This is actually our 1 year anniversary and 52nd episode, which is cool. I don't have any super famous guest on or anything today. It's just me. I'm actually going to go over backpacks and gear, basically highlights of gear. I did one kind of like this before, just talked about gear in general, and I did a backpack review, but the EXO K4 frame was not in that review. I got one of those frames since then, so this is going to be all across the board. But I want to thank all of our listeners and all the people following along on YouTube, social media page. Been a crazy year. Obviously, the transition to Born Primitive, the speed Born Primitive is growing, the way we're expanding, what all we're coming out with and going to be coming out with. It's been great. So thank all of you for listening in. Thank all of you for the comments. I recently lost a very close friend. Anybody that listens to the podcast knows that. And I just got home from his celebration of life ceremony from Oregon. And I've been traveling a lot. So yeah, a big thank you. And before I get into the review, this year I had planned, I didn't go up to British Columbia to guide. I didn't plan on guiding as much. And I don't guide for the money. You don't make a whole lot of money as a guide. I guide because I love being out there and helping people. It's not like a money making thing. I did have some funny comments in a negative way. I posted a miss of a sheep I was helping a local outfitter. And a lot of people took that as what it was, of a learning thing or whatever else. But when I say learning, I just want people practice shooting and get fit before you want a guided hunt. But with the guiding side of things, it's just something I like to do, helping people, and it gives me a chance to be out there more. Having said that, because this question came down the pipe a lot about me hunting, I haven't hunted nearly as much as I thought I would. Between work, we have a lot going on, a lot of new projects that I can't really talk about. Guiding, helping out Blake. It's Chamley Outfitting. He injured himself, so helping him out. I will be doing a podcast with the three dudes from Nantucket. One was from Pennsylvania from the first hunt, all together, which I'm excited about. That was a really cool hunt. I only, hunted with two of them were my clients, but really cool trip, really fun week with all of those guys. So anyway, back on subject here. I'm squirreling. With the packs, and I'm going to try to put a little bit of context into this. The first, backpack review I did, I had, used Initial Ascent quite a bit, Mystery Ranch quite a bit. Obviously, I worked at Kafaro for 14 years, and I tried to, and multiple different packs I talked about, but I tried to be as honest with the pack review as I could on, when I say as honest I could be, my opinions of things. Like the Initial Ascent, for example, very good at hauling heavy weight. We'll give a Kafaro a run for its money, but some of the design things on it I didn't like as much. And, as far as Mystery Ranch, I like the bags on the Mystery Ranch, but the frame fails when you get into heavier weight. And I say fails, it doesn't break, it doesn't fall apart. It's just not as comfortable. And when you look at, obviously spending the last 15 years working on backpacks and everything else, in the beginning, and I say the beginning, for the most part, Patrick Smith, somebody I look to as like a father, owner of Kafaro, founder of Mountain Smith, and then Dana Gleason, Dana Design, K2, whatever, K2 bought Dana Design, Mystery Ranch. They founded or pioneered a lot of this, the pack stuff. I mean, there was other companies as well. And then, as time went on, Kurt Roscoe with Stone Glacier came out with some pretty innovative stuff. He had not the X Curve, the Crux frame, which was the straight version of the Stone Glacier frame, and then a Crux frame came out, or then a X-Curve came out, which was the curved frame. And then, in that time, Kuiu had come out. They don't make a horrible pack. Not my first choice, but a lot of other companies in the middle have come and gone, or some have stayed. Initial Ascent got in the mix a few years ago. And you can see there's a lot of parts and pieces from all of these bags that were, and I'm not saying stolen, right? And I want to make sure in context, I try not to everyone borrows ideas from everyone else, and it may be a portion of one idea to another, or whatever. So when you look at something like a lumbar pad on these packs, that's pretty much, the EXO is a direct, I would say, copy. The Initial Ascent's not direct, but pretty close. And I say copy, I mean this with all in not a negative way. That lumbar pad was very, very close. All of those lumbar pads are very close to what Patrick Smith. And when I'm talking about packs and everything else, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just, and Kifaru has borrowed or had ideas from other pack companies. You can't not. It is very hard to have everything original. So like if I was going to be designing a pack system, I would have ideas that would be, off of my experience over the last years and years and years of what I knew worked. And some of those things that worked might be something like Mystery Ranch or Kifaru or EXO or Initial Ascent had, and then I tweak it my own way. So there's a lot of parallels on these packs that look like other packs, and you cannot get away from that. So, obviously there's some innovation with, like, when Kurt Roscoe came out, did he pioneer the meat shelf? Well, both Patrick and Dana Gleason had patents on load shelves of some sort, but Kurt changed it up a little bit and then marketed it accordingly. And he did an amazing job. And Kurt had a lot of innovative designs on that. EXO, the first frames, I was not a big fan of some of the first frames from the EXO, the K4. If I was going to design a frame, there would be parts of the K4 on there, parts of the Mystery Ranch, and parts of the Kifaru. And it's not a matter of like copying. It's a matter of, when I say copying, you're going to have to use different ideas. So I got a lot of messages, not negative towards me, but, EXO belt and lumbar pad are just like a Kifaru. Yeah, they're a lot alike, you're right. Yep. And then, but then you look at something from a Kifaru, it's like, they got that from Mystery Ranch, or Initial Ascent copied this, or whatever, or the arc frame. There's a lot of hate mail getting thrown my way that it looked like the Initial Ascent or whatever. So, when you look at something, like when you're looking at a different frame in a bag, just because, let's say, a lumbar pad looks like a different one, depending upon what foam's inside, depending upon the curvature of the stays, it doesn't mean they're going to fit the same. It doesn't mean they're going to work. There's a lot more to it than something looking like another. And so, you've got the innovation portion of it, like with, the Initial Ascent. That frame is not indestructible, but very close. It's also an epic pain in the ass to design. They have the little hooks on the side where you can hang meat bags off of. That's not something I would personally choose to do unless I had to, but people like that option, right? So that's innovative. It looks more or less like a shoulder strap gun hook for, you could hook your rifle sling on, but it's which you can do that, but it's made to haul game bags out when needed or whatever. And then obviously the Crux frame, that was fairly innovative when that came out. So like, again, people ask this to me all the time, what would you design? I probably wouldn't go the route of carbon myself. I wouldn't personally choose to go with a carbon frame. I like the duplex frame from the beginning, but there's things I would change on the duplex frame. And Patrick and I talked about this sometimes. Sometimes I got outvoted, sometimes I didn't in the design. So I would want something with carbon stays, but I wouldn't want a carbon frame personally. Now, where you get into the issues with this, when I say issues, it's stiffness, right? You could make a more flexible carbon frame that would be good up to 60 to 65 pounds, let's say 50 to 60, whatever, but then would fail with heavier weight. Then when you get a stiffer frame, it's going to suffer. I mean, some people may be listening, that's not true, but it's going to be too stiff for lighter loads, right? And maybe stiffer than you need. And it's no different than vehicles, right? I mean, like you can, and I don't know, it's a great analogy, but an F-250 Super Duty with airbags in the back, it's going to tow like crazy. It's going to do fine on the highway. You take it off road, it's going to be horrible. So then you put a softer suspension with some kind of Fox shocks where, like I had in my Shelby Raptor or whatever. That thing was made to take jumps. It's made to articulate, be squishy, but then it's going to suffer. Well, it did suffer hauling heavy weight. Packs are no different, right? So happy medium is a huge one, and I would choose more so to go with the happy medium to where it does pretty damn well up to 100, 120 pounds, 80 to 100. And then, it's going to be more of a backpack with a duffel bag with shoulder straps. When you get into that 115, 120 range, the weight sucks already anyway, so to speak, right? So I would choose to have something in the upper middle to be comfortable to that point and very comfortable with 40 to 65. Extremely comfortable with that. And then 65 to 85, yep, still pretty damn comfortable, faltering a little from 85 to 100, because you just aren't carrying heavy weight that often, and you're more apt, and most humans don't want to carry, it's a big dick thing, right? 120 pounds coming out. Yeah, it happens, right? But most of the time, 80 pounds, and this gets lost in I haven't said translation. People are full of shit online. 80 pounds is a lot of weight, right? A lot of weight. And I think some people, when they say they're carrying 120, maybe carrying 80, maybe carrying 70. So legit weight, 70 to 80 pounds is a shitload of weight. Now, I try not to, as much as I used to, an ass load of weight. But in general, it's just pretty uncomfortable once you're over 180, 100 pounds or whatever else. Now, when it's fitted correctly, you could take 4 packs. And you could take, out of those 4 packs, you could have a very rigid frame that's really comfortable at carrying heavy loads. But if it's not fitted to you correctly, it's going to feel horrible anyway, right? So the fitment's very important with that. So answering some of the questions I've had over the last year, quite a bit over the last couple months, just because I'm hunting with these packs on, I'd really choose right now to opt for something that's extremely comfortable, with up to 85 pounds, let's say. And then, really comfortable with that 40 to 65. And then at 80, might falter a little bit, but still pretty dang comfortable. And then, I wouldn't want it to be a Barney stiffness type frame or a arc frame or initial ascent where it's super stiff. I'd want it stiff, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice the normal weight most people are carrying, especially on a backpack hunt. Hopefully I'm making some sense of this. One of the things, obviously, too, as you're figuring this stuff out, is I like a belt that cups your hips more. That was something that Patrick had on his belts that obviously Kafaru has. Mystery Ranch has more of a pressure fit. I like more of a cupping fit. So I would go that route. I'd like to add a little bit more padding to the shoulder straps than some of these companies come out with. The reason why they do that is to save weight. But in my opinion, once you get heavier weight, you can't fuck with the pack is going to sag no matter what. The heavier weight you get, the belt is going to do its best job, but gravity is hard to beat. And so I would want a little bit more padding for when that happens on the shoulder straps. But these companies, and it's just the industry in general, they save a little bit of weight going with a little more lighter weight shoulder strap. And there's nothing wrong with it. That is not a design flaw. That is built by design. But knowing that eventually gravity is a bitch and you're going to have all that weight on your shoulders, I would go with a little bit thicker shoulder strap, and it would add weight. And when you're talking about weight, forever like, Mr. Ranch, they had like 12 to 14 pound packs empty. You could drag them behind a Humvee, right? But they were heavier. And then Kafari was in the middle. And then you'd have some ultralight stuff. And then when Stone Glacier came out, they, pretty soon a 7 pound pack was heavy. You had to be 5 or 7.5 or whatever. So, to me, just like my Aero weight and everything else, I like a happy medium. I don't want to chase that lightweight rabbit. I don't like going ultra lightweight on my packs, but I also don't want to go heavy. So if I can get a 7,200 cubic inch pack, roughly, and I can keep that thing around 6.5 to 7.5 pounds, not sacrifice durability, not sacrifice comfort, that is a win. And so, would I opt occasionally for an extremely lightweight bag or design one? Of course I would, but that wouldn't be my primary bag. That would be for specific tool in the toolbox, so to speak. So, after rambling here, I love talking about backpacks, and I obviously, working for Born Primitive, designed the majority, if not all of the, or had my hand in the Born Primitive outdoor clothing line. But my heart's in backpacks, right? I love clothing, I love gear and everything else, but I really like the backpacking stuff. So as we're on the 100th or 1 year anniversary in the 52nd episode, bear with me as I'm rambling on about backpacks. So where does EXO stack up? That was the number one question. Now, in when I'm looking at this, I did not try all of their bags. So keep that in mind. But the K4 frame it looks a lot like something that Patrick and I, parts of it, had worked on at one point in time, went a little bit different route. But it has some of the same similarities, and I like the K4 frame. I think it's the best option for an all-around happy medium, meaning does pretty damn good with lightweight, does pretty damn good with heavyweight. Now, I had the Shoot to Hunt bag, which there's a history behind that, which ask Ryan Avery, he can talk about it. Ryan Avery loved the EMR2 bag that I had designed with Bender, but I designed a long time ago, and then we changed it and came out with the pack called the Fulcrum, I believe. The names get confusing, it's all a blur. So he really liked that. We never were going to do exactly what he wanted, so he meaning Ryan, went to Steve Speck with EXO and designed the Shoot to Hunt bag. Exactly to his specs. I liked that bag. I'm not a big wing guy on bags, even though, I've been part of the design process with a lot of those, but you could tuck those wings between the frame and the bag. And then how that bag worked was great. I liked it. Would I buy that bag as my first choice? Probably not, but has anything to do with EXO, right? That's just because I don't like the wings, but that specific pack would check a lot of boxes for a lot of people, and it checked a lot of boxes for me. I ran it on a few different hunts, and that frame is comfortable. As far as the hierarchy of frames or where it lies, I would definitely put that up there as one of my first choices. And there's some things, if I designed a pack, would definitely like from that EXO. Having said that, I changed the shoulder strap adjustment up quite a bit. I changed up the belt and lumbar pad, some of the different things like that, but it's very innovative. So where does that lie? Hold on one sec, gonna get a drink. I'd like to say as I drink that, Deadshot Nutrition makes amazing electrolyte mix. Check them out. Super good dude. And out of all the electrolyte mixes, especially for the hunting companies, outdoor companies, the Deadshot is definitely my favorite. So check them out. I'm not turn this into a sales pitch. So where does it lie? Where does it fit in? Why would you buy it? It is an amazing frame. Spec did good. I didn't like his first one. I really didn't like his second one. This one, though, when I got it, there was a lot of things, and I'm like, what, did he send a spy into my brain? And I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but I mean, I'm looking at like, oh, I like this, and there's some things I'm like, I would have done that differently, but very good design. So how does it hauling heavy weight? Does really good up to that, 85 to 100 pound range. Now, you'll see companies, frame rating of, 150 pounds or something. I don't even know why that's applicable. It doesn't matter. I'm one of the strongest dudes I know with carrying weight. And I'm not like bragging about that, but meaning I can carry some shit, and 150 pounds is freak show crazy, Brian Shaw, world's strongest man crazy. So when they say that, I think it's more of nothing will break up to 150, because it's certainly not going to be comfortable at all at 150 pounds. So some people can carry that much, but that's more of the frame won't break. So where would that lie, the EXO? It would definitely be up there at the top. There was certainly some things that I would change on it, but it's a great option. And like, I ran the Mystery Ranch quite a bit this year in comparison. I really like a lot of the options on bags and stuff on the Mystery Ranch, but it's not great at heavy load hauling. In fact, I had 100 and some pounds on it, and it was sucking the life out of me with that much weight. Now with 50, it's fine, or you know what I mean? It just starts to fall behind. So, why would someone, buy a Mystery Ranch? One, body type, right? If your body type's different than mine, that straight frame or that belt, just because it doesn't work as well with heavyweight with me, it may work for you. So body type has a lot to do with it. Your hips, do you have pronounced hips? What curvature do you have in your back? Things like that. Now, I do prefer the highest amount of adjustability you can get in a shoulder strap. Not just the shoulder strap adjusting up and down, but also where the connection point to your shoulder strap. Patrick was really big on that, where it lines up with roughly your clavicle that goes up to the frame. I like to have the adjustability of higher and lower, and the load lifter angle. That's very important to me. And something that I would also want is where the tightening or tensioning points are on the shoulder strap to the frame, meaning where's the webbing that holds the shoulder strap or the Velcro? Where does that shoulder strap pivot off of the frame in accordance to that? So I would want that as well. So as I'm rambling on here, it's a great option, by far the best that they've ever had, and certainly got a lot of things figured out, over the years. When they started, like any company, there's going to be shit on their pack that looks like other companies' packs, including Kifaru. And again, I'm like way past that. I don't want to argue about that shit, meaning I see people online, this company copied this company or this happened. And, sometimes I would see that in reference to Kifaru, and I'd be like, look, we have packs that are, that come in for warranty 20 years, right? When I say we, at the time, 20 years old. And there would be something that we have had out for a long time, but another company would come out with it and people would think that they were the originators. But in the end, there's a lot of pie in the sky. Not something like really worth arguing, because everyone copies everyone in clothing or backpacks or gear in general. You look at Peaks. A lot of people use Peak stuff. Great company, no issue with them. Their gator is a outdoor research crocodile gator with a little bit different attachment point on the top of it, rather than a basically lever lock or clip buckle. They've got a little different system there. Headlamp, right? Walking sticks, whatever. Everyone copies everyone. As long as it's not a blatant copy from top to bottom, it's pretty hard to get around that with anything. So I'm only bringing this up because I had a lot of questions about, did this company copy this company, who copied this, or whatever else. It just happens by design. So as far as the K4 frame, it would definitely be one of my top choices. As far as the initial Ascent, and that's come across my plate a lot, is it the best load hauling pack on the market? I mean, the K4, the initial Ascent, the Kifaru heavyweight, it would be flip a coin, right? 33.33% chance one of them's going to win, depending upon the body type. Now, I can say rigidity-wise, the K4 is not quite as rigid as obviously a solid carbon composite type frame from Initial Ascent or Kifaru. Obviously lashing points, things like that. But with normal human heavyweight, 100 pounds, it'd be hard to pick one of them. So there's going to be, it's a tits and ass thing, if you're a dude anyway. Whatever chicks prefer. Are you a boob guy? Are you a butt guy? Right? Which one, what curb appeal and what is most important to you? Bag design. Do you carry a spotter? Do you not carry a spotter? Do you like more compression straps or less? Does the curvature of the shoulder strap, how it goes around your shoulder, marry up to you very well, who may be 5'7" and 158 pounds, or someone else that's 6'1", 248 pounds? All of those things come into play when you're buying and choosing a pack of what's the best, in air quotations. So, but for me, and I'm leaving Stone Glacier out on some of this, the Stone Glacier is a great option. It is pretty dang comfortable for most people. But I've definitely seen people that have tried it on that hate it, right? That just dislike it, especially hauling heavy weight. Now, for me, with the Crux frame, it did quite well with hauling heavy weight. Now, I'm not in the ultralight world, so there's certain things I would do differently with certain pack designs, Stone Glacier being one of them, that I would want the option for and just carry the extra 6, 8, or 12 ounces because I want what I want. And the weight part of it, maybe when I'm 60, right, I'm working on 50. Maybe when I'm working on 60, I might sacrifice 12 ounces in pack weight, in raw pack weight, to and lose some functionality maybe to save the weight. But as of right now, I just don't give a shit, and I want what I want. So carrying a little bit of extra weight, having more options on a pack is more for me. And when I say that, like auto lock buckles, Initial Ascent, I think you get them or you can order them. Same with Stone Glacier, auto lock buckles, but you do have to attach and reattach all of the buckles. I like auto locks. I do not like, on the EXO that I got, I changed them out immediately. I wanted auto lock buckles. I hate not having auto lock buckles. Strapping on horns, strapping on tripods, spotters, walking sticks, guns. I want that compression strap to lock in tight and stay there. And you have to have an auto lock buckle for that to happen because it gets to a curvature angle point with the buckle that it comes loose. That adds money. That adds weight, having an auto lock buckle. So, but the Initial Ascent, yes, does extremely well hauling heavy weight. Having said that, 30% of that whole shittery, I would change. I would say somewhere around 20 to 30% on the EXO, I would change. I would say probably 40% of a Mystery Ranch, I would change. And even on a Cafaro, there's 30 to 40% I would change on that. But that's because it's me, right? And when I say it, people are like, you designed it. Well, there's parameters, right? There's also, if a company starts with a specific type of belt, they kind of got to die with it, right? I mean, it's pretty hard to change horses in the middle of a river when you have, 40,000 packs out there with one belt. And if you came out with a new belt, that belt wouldn't fit any of the old packs, in the design side of things. So when I say that, yeah, I designed all kinds of stuff, with help, wasn't just me. But there's certain things I would change. And when I say percentage, I'm pulling those numbers out of my ass, roughly. So again, talked about the shoulder straps, what I would change on that. Might change the curvature on some of them. Attachment systems, what types of buckles that would be used, what types of material would be used. Auto lock compared to standard, buckles, for example. Where pockets go, what type of zipper. Like YKK is the king, but I might opt for a number 10 zipper instead of a number 8. So being in the position I'm in, and anyone with a mind like mine is always going to look to alter. And that happens. There's companies out there that alter current model packs all the time. And then there's companies that just flat out order some shit, take it apart, rebuild it, and pretend it's like their own. I'm not going to mention these companies specifically. There are, I guess, some blatant copiers out there, so I should say that in total like context or whatever. There are companies that have ordered things from Cafaro, taken them apart, rebuilt them, and then came out with their own model that was a blatant copy. But overall, that generally doesn't happen. So if you have any more questions on this, I'm at 30 minutes rambling on about backpacks. Shoot me a message. But K4 Frame's pretty badass. Initial Ascent's pretty badass. Mystery Ranch, the bags are badass. Frame's pretty good. The Kuiu, I haven't used Kuiu a bunch, They're just pack, right? It's a pack. It's a pack. It serves a purpose, not in the upper echelon, in my opinion, of packs. And when you come to long-term durability, heavy load hauling, but it's pretty damn good. I mean, it does not do bad with normal weight. And one of the employees a long time ago, I remember him saying specifically to me something about in the 65, 70 pound range after that. Who gives a shit? I'm not carrying that much weight anyway. So it depends on how much you carry. So, I don't think there's anything else to add on the pack side of things. All right, moving on. That was packs. Optics. I'm going to try to nail these down in order of what I get most questions about. So optics. I was using a Maven spotter the other day. Brendan over at Maven let me take one on this recent guiding elk deal I was on. I've used Maven Rewind several years. I started using Maven when Maven first came out. In the midst of all of the companies with all the new optics, Maven is definitely in that upper mid-range, working on high range. Same thing I've always said. There's other optics companies that have very good optics, but a Maven B2 optic is pushing. The NL Pure from Swarovski is never going to be beaten. It's just not in my opinion. I don't think so anyway. Is it an NL Pure? No, it's not an NL Pure. It's getting there, but it's not. And there's I think NL Pures are $3,700, and I think a Maven B2's $12. I'd have to look, right? So it shouldn't be one, or you're getting really lucky and no one would own anything but Maven. So Maven came up a lot. Yes, the Maven B2, I haven't used all of their optics. The B2, I believe, is their upper range glass. And if I'm misspeaking, I apologize. Yeah, that's going to get you done no matter where you go, right? It's going to be fine from a sheep hunt to a goat hunt to an elk hunt. Percentage of difference between an NL Pure and a Maven. One is going to be low light or light gathering at low light, right? So the last 15 minutes, probably not going to tell. You get to the last 10 minutes of light, going to start to see a difference, and that time goes down. There's going to be more of a gap. The other thing is going to be the field of view on an NL Pure. If you look at a 10 by 42 from one optic company compared to an NL Pure, the field of view is much wider. And with that field of view of a 42 millimeter, they didn't change the objective, right? Meaning you could get a set of 10 by 56s that are giving them run for their money on an NL Pure 10 by 42, but the 10 by 4 is a 42 millimeter objective, so they're able to do that and keep the weight down of the optic. But gun to my head, if I had to hunt the rest of my life with a Maven, yes, I would have zero issues with that. They're a great optic company, and Brendan over there is a great person. There's a couple people over there that talk shit about me, one specifically. Whatever, right? Brendan's always been good to me. That guy and I'll figure shit out on our own at some point. I'm sure I'll run into him. But Brendan is an awesome guy, same as Mike. Now, some of the different optics I use from Maven. I use their little compact 8x25s when I was elk hunting. I was in thick timber. I've never used a set of compact binoculars before. I put it in my kit bag, that marsupial gear kit bag, fit in there with all the other crap I wanted to carry. Worked great. I had zero issues with them. So yes, best bang for the buck for optics, Maven would be one of them, without a doubt. And then as far as rifle scopes go, I am not a gun nut. I don't own I'm starting to become a gun nut, but I don't own a shit ton of rifles, right? I have a few. When I first got the Maven I'm using right now is the R4, and it's 5-30, and for me, I like a big objective, so it's a 5-30 by 56, I guess. Is that right, or 52? I should know that. See, there you go. I'm not the optic guy or not the rifle scope guy. It reminded me, it had some similarities to a Night Force. And when I say that, not meaning they copied Night Force, but looking through it, optical clarity, it was up there, right? If not better than a Night Force, I thought. And, it's got a lot of legs on the R4 for reaching out and touching something. Adjustment-wise, the zero stop on that thing, pop the cap off, get everything dialed, pick up the turret, twist it, drop it, put the cap back on. very intuitive, very easy way to adjust, your turrets on that. Durability, I have definitely beat the shit out of that R4. Zero issues, with durability on that thing. You do have an illuminated reticle option on the R4. Now, when I say the reticle, the entire reticle, the crosshairs don't light up. It's a dot. I really like that option, though I very rarely use it when I'm aiming specifically into dark timber, specifically into a black bear. Because it's hard to see those crosshairs, in that dot, and you can adjust it really dim to really bright. So, if I had the choice, between what rifle scopes, that I would pick right now, Maven would definitely be up there at the top, and then, Leupold and Night Force. Now, there's a ton of other great options out there with Zeiss and Swarovski, Kawa. They're all great. But from what I've used, I've had great luck with those three companies. And as of right now, I'm just sticking with the R4. And I've got them on both of my long guns. But I am going to start gun hunting more. I'm really enjoying it, much like with fly fishing or when I picked up traditional archery. I'm having fun with it, and that's what the the most important part is for me. So with the optics, to me, what I think is missing in the outdoor world right now would be a good set of mid-range range-finding binos. Now, there are mid-range range-finding binos out there. I think they're lacking. You look at a SIG, their mid-range range-finding bino, the rangefinder on it is unbelievable. Optics kind of suck, right? Not great, right? And there's others. Vortex got one, and but the cream of the crop right now for that is the Swarovski ELs and then the Leicas for a range-finding bino. Now, when people ask me about what would I choose, the only time for me a range-finding bino suffers is in archery, when you're bow hunting with extreme angles, because the basically after 22 degrees, 65, 70 yards, the cut that the rangefinder does automatically is not enough at steep angles. And the Leupold figured that out with their full draw 4 and 5, and I think it's incorporated to other rangefinders they offer. SIG figured it out. Theirs is really close, if not, equal to what Leupold's doing. But a good quality, like comparing a Maven B2 set of binoculars to a set of Swaro ELs or NL Pures, they're close. What we need to get is a mid-range optic, or a mid-priced optic, meaning $1,600 to $2,000, a range-finding bino with that same kind of tear glass as a Maven B2. That's missing, and I would really like to see that come out. And I'm pretty blessed in the fact that I get to use pretty much everything out there. So I'd say that's missing. So either way, that's the optics portion of this. As far as that goes, I can go into great detail and talk all day long about it, but the Maven R4 is an amazing rifle scope. Love it. The B2s have been great, and their spotting scope that I was using was great, and kind of parallels from binoculars to the spotting scope in the sense of, that little bit of difference in low light is what you're going to see. So next up is shelters. I use the Argali Rincon quite a bit this year. Nothing's changed that much with me with shelters. I looked at Durston gear, shelters. I don't have much hands-on experience. The client had one, but as far as shelters go, Hilleberg is still at the top for 3 and 4 season shelters, durability, everything else. They're a little heavy. Not going to ever beat a Hilleberg. And if your life depends on it and you're late season caribou hunting, you really want to be in a Hilleberg, right? Now, I use MSR hubbas. I've used tarp tents. I've used all kinds of stuff. But as far as a one do-all system, for one person, the Argali Rincon with the bug net option, floor option, and stove option is going to be the closest thing that's going to get you done in all 4 seasons. And Brad Brooks is an amazing human. So that would be the one that I would look at the most, but it's not going to take the place of a 4-season dual wall shelter. Right? Meaning, you set that bad boy up and you don't have the stove going, there's no wood around, you are going to fucking freeze to death. Right? You need a dual wall 4-season shelter at times, but the closest you can get for a 1 wall would be like that shelter, that Rincon from Argali. But it's not a dual wall 4-season shelter. I didn't really try anything else out about, crazy new or whatever else, but the hammock I did. So I don't really compare, when I talk about shelters, normally hammocks with other shelters because it's a hammock. Having said that, the Amok ultralight hammock that I used with their larger tarp is the best sleep I've ever had by far in the mountains, and I didn't want to get out of the fucking thing. Like, it was comfortable. Took me a little bit of, to get used to pitching it. I did not get cold with their system. They do not use an underquilt. They use an insulated air pad, and I definitely got that thing down pushing into freezing and below. It was amazing, and I think I'm going to be using a hammock probably half of the time from here on out, because there are times that a hammock just doesn't make sense, but they are damn comfortable. That thing is comfortable, and far more comfortable than because it tees off. You tie it from tree to tree, and normally you sleep tree to tree. Well, when you tie this one tree to tree, you actually tee off, and your left and right arm are pointing to the tie off point. So like you're crucified or whatever. Man, it was awesome. Like, I slept so good in that thing. So shelter-wise, the Amok ultralight, it was amazing. And then again, that Argali Rincon. Now, sleeping bags. The only new thing that is of noteworthy at all to me is the Argali sleeping bag. Now, Brad does not sponsor me. He does not pay me or anything. He's going to be my competitor soon because he's coming out with clothing. But his sleeping bag is legit. No bullshit. We'll give Western Mountaineering and Feathered Friends Catabatic Gear a run for their money, if not better. It is the first hunting company sleeping bag that I have seen that will give the big dogs a run for their money, and if not better. I have both of their bags now. They're 20 and they're 0. And those ratings are conservative. I've pushed that 20 degree far below 20, and the 0, I haven't pushed below 0, but I was so fucking hot when it was 20 degrees outside that I should have brought the 20. So those sleeping bags, that's the only thing I have to report on sleeping bags. That Argali sleep system sleeping bags is pretty badass. And I've got the 0 and the 20, and for my size, it fits me great circumference wise and everything else. Okay, so food, electrolyte mix, stuff like that. So nothing groundbreaking on food. For the most part, just a couple things. One, high ground beef jerky chips. You can make these if you wanted to, but these are basic. I'm actually eating some right now. It looks like a potato chip, but it's beef jerky. A little bit expensive. All beef jerky is, but that was one thing that was like very new and noteworthy to me. I've only been eating them for a month, but pretty amazing. But they're high ground is what it's called, and it's veteran owned. As far as bars, off the farm bars, I've talked about those before. They're made of peanut butter, so they're made of happiness. Off the farm bars are amazing. Now, the peanut butter and jelly is one of my top ones, but honestly, the peanut butter chocolate chip is definitely my favorite. Now, they have 2 types of bars. One's kind of the peanut butter bars, one's a meal bar. Meal bars are good, but they're not as good as the peanut butter bar. So off the farm. As far as electrolyte mix, which I talked about earlier, Deadshot Nutrition, again, they don't pay me. Right? They give me a discount on shit for sure. Although the last time I think I paid double for what I ordered, even with my discount, they screwed that up. Meaning I got half of what I should have for what I paid. But the Deadshot Nutrition, and they have a brand new flavor too that's amazing. So those would be kind of the food things. Now, I tried a bunch of different food. this year I did a video on backpacking food for a budget. But as far as things that you can go buy that are very noteworthy, I would say that the top two things are the Off the Farm bars and the High Ground beef jerky sticks. So the next thing, because I hardly ever use a water pump, so water filtration and purification. Because of where we were elk hunting this year and the shithole we had to get our water from, a pump was a far better option than what I normally use. And I normally just use MSR Aquatabs or a Sterapin. More Aquatabs now than anything else. And in short trips where we were getting water, no problem. Meaning I would have zero issue getting some water out of that, and the pain in the ass it would be to get the Squidwards out, not a problem. But when you're filtering for 2 to 3 guys for 8 days, like, the filter was the way to go. So the 2 filters were pumps. The Katadyn Hiker Pro and then the MSR Guardian. Now, honestly, the MSR Guardian, you might have to sell a child or a testicle, I don't know, a tit, maybe something. It's fucking expensive, right? I think it's almost $400. I got mine and tried it, and I actually sent it back. So my for a pump, Katadyn Hiker Pro is the way to go. The Guardian is better for third world countries, and I would opt for that if you're in a lot of third world countries. You can read about it and find out why, as far as what it keeps out. But the Katadyn Hiker Pro in North America, way to go. I don't really like the gravity filters. I got burned twice this year on those fuckers plugging up because, they're a hollow core fiber filter. If they freeze, they're pretty much worthless. Not a big fan of the squeeze filters. Same shit. They get plugged up easy. And when you're up high and you're drinking snow melt that's got silt everywhere, you're kind of screwed no matter what. Meaning, pump's gonna fill with silt shit probably in 32 ounces if it's really bad. Again, same thing with the squeeze filters. So that's where I'll use an Aquatab and do my best to get debris out with some kind of a scarf, a coffee filter, something like that. But you got to deal with what God gave you. But with the algae kind of filled water with Squidwards everywhere, that pump was great. So Katadyn Hiker Pro. Footwear. For the most part, I've worn Zamberlan 2090. I've worn everything. Zamberlan 2092s are my go-to with hardcore kind of hunts or extreme hunts or whatever. I've used a bunch of other Hanwag Makra has been a great boot. I like that. They're kind of seems like going away though. A few different Zamberlans that I like. Lawa Tibets, I've used those. Crispies, I've used the Brickstall Mountain. I can't remember all the names. But this year, I used the Alpine Pro from Crispy. Until the last elk hunt, I put the 2092 back on. The number one reason is the 2092 is more insulated than the Alpine Pro, and it was cold, right? So the last actually couple hunts, I put the 2092 back on. Durability, zero issues with durability on the Alpine Pro so far. They did start leaking a little bit there towards the end, but I would say, even though I only had them a few months, for what I was putting them through and everything else, and the little amount of leaking was acceptable. People might listen to that and shit a willy and be like, that's never acceptable. If you have any synthetic on your boot and you're beating the living shit out of them, they are going to leak. And in my opinion, over the course of 3 to 6 months, heavy abuse with synthetic on the boot, it's not necessarily the manufacturer's fault. It doesn't take too much to pierce that membrane. Little sticks, little, whatever, huckleberry or, whatever, vines and shit. It's going to pierce. So if you don't want a leaky boot, wear an all-leather boot and treat it. Now, you can treat the material, obviously, of synthetic. But over time, synthetic is not going to be as waterproof or as durable. The Alpine Pro has a synthetic tongue, and I got some leaking towards the bottom of that, probably with extreme abuse, but I did get it. But that's acceptable to me. I'm not mad at Crispy for that. Other boots I've tried, including a couple pairs from Crispy, have leaked like the Iraqi Navy real quick. I did not like that. I don't feel that, how long that took for them to leak was not acceptable. With the Alpine Pro, the shit that I put those boots through, totally fine. The only reason why I ran that 2092, it's a warmer boot, and it was snowing and extremely cold. So that's why I swapped. So the Alpine Pro was definitely a boot that I would suggest for, more mountain hunting-esque type boots. So that's about all I have to say about footwear. We are at Born Primitive coming out with a 0-drop mountain hunting shoe, meaning like a Zero, a Vivo, something like that. It's going to be a different concept behind it, but I really like that footwear. I'm not going to wear that on a sheep hunt, a 0-drop, but we are coming out with a little more durable, a little more mountain hunting friendly 0-drop shoe. It's going to be a while. We're perfecting it, but we are coming out with one of those. I'm very excited. Some of the options for 0-drop shoes that are out there right now are very anti-hunting, very anti-Second Amendment. So very proud to be coming out with something like that from obviously a company, whatever. We're very pro Second Amendment, pro hunting at Born Primitive. So that's great. Now, as far as bipods go, and again, I am not the gun nut that a Ryan Avery, a John Pinch, a Matt Allwine, and many others are. So this is coming from a guy that can shoot pretty damn good, but isn't a nut in it. The Tricer tripod, I think they call it the RC, if I'm not mistaken. Got a lot of options on that. Got a very, enticing price point to it. I liked it. It was good. It has 2 different leg lengths that you can, put a little shorter leg length or a longer leg length. Great adjustment. 0 issues with durability. That was pretty awesome. I didn't have any issues with that. Now, Spartan, and the owner of Spartan's an awesome guy too, just like the crew over at Tricer. Spartan has a lot of options for tripods. I've used those off and on. But the one that my buddy Chris Horn was using in the elk hunt was a Spartan. That thing is very, very lightweight and pretty freaking hard to beat for certain scenarios as well. The other one that is pretty much always on my gun, or has been, I guess I should say, is the New Zealand Mountain Gear tripod. Very ultralight. It's a prone tripod. It's not a sitting tripod. It's a prone tripod. But for shooting in the prone, that New Zealand Mountain Gear is pretty badass for that. And, it's on my gun a lot, especially when I had shots that are probably going to be in the prone. And if you have questions on these things in great depth, don't ask me on the gun stuff. As I'm learning, when I say learning, getting more to be a gun nut and hunting with a gun more, it's a different story. But John Pinch, Allwine, Ryan Avery, those are great guys to ask about this stuff that have more knowledge than I do. So I think that's about it. That's all I'm going to cover. I'm going to go try to whack a whitetail tonight with my buddy Dan the dentist. But I do want to thank everyone. Again, I was down in the dumps there for 3 weeks after my buddy took his life. I really appreciate hundreds of people messaging me, checking on me. That was great. But as I say that, make sure and check on your buddies. Be a good human, be a good person, the best of your ability. And, when someone's struggling, you don't know what someone's going through. Remember that when you treat them accordingly, meaning they could be having the worst day in the world, the worst year in their life, the worst whatever. Remember that. You never know what's going on in someone's mind. In the case of my buddy, he took his own life. He was going through some hard stuff, and it is difficult for me because I feel like I should have done more. But it is what it is. So check on a buddy. And again, thank all of you for tuning in, the support, over the last 15, 20 years I've been in the outdoor industry, but especially in the last year. Been a lot of change in my life. Good changes. I'm very happy I made those changes, but with change, there's always some stress involved. So I appreciate the support. And Born Primitive's doing amazing. I love it. It's growing like crazy. Lots of great things to come. So yeah, thank you everyone thank you for tuning in, the support and the friendship, and I will see you guys on the next podcast.